Hello and welcome. So Michael here, and I'll be your guide for all things EFT. So in today's video, I want to go through the top 5 reasons why EFT tapping doesn't work or may not be working for you. And I'm going to give you some tips as well about things you can do to potentially increase the chances that EFT tapping will work better for you. Okay, so let's get into it. So the top reason why EFT tapping doesn't work is because people don't practice it. Now I know that sounds really obvious, but it's still worth saying because often people try things 1 time, 2 times, and then, it doesn't work for me, and then they move on to other things, right? And this is not just about EFT tapping, right? You can look at this across the board, look at things like meditation or yoga or gym exercise or trying something different or learning a new skill, right? All these things take repetition and consistency to really see results. It's just the way that we are designed, right? Humans are designed. It needs repetition, right? And so what I'd say is just to keep practicing it, right? Give it a bit more of a chance. And I want to give you some tips about how you can do that. So if you're a beginner, absolutely new to EFT tapping, what I advise these people to do is just try and do it 1 or 2 minutes a day, most days. And to make it even easier, don't worry about the words. You don't actually need the words in some cases, right? Because when we tap on the body in this way, it's still sending signals into the system. The body is still rebalancing towards homeostasis. The brain is still reorganizing because there's some stimulant going into the system, which is the tapping. So something is still happening, even if you don't use words, okay? And I'm just saying this to make it even easier to practice, right? Because that's often people block the practice because they think they don't have the right thing to say, things like that, right? So see if you can do 1 or 2 minutes without words. Just there, 1 hand is okay, 2 hands is okay. And just tap and breathe for 1 or 2 minutes, right? So the second reason why EFT tapping doesn't work or may not be working is because we're not spending enough time tuning in to the feeling or the state inside the body. Now, another word we use in EFT tapping is called targeting. Our ability to target a specific anxiety or particular stressful feeling, right? And generally, the better you are at being able to feel or tune in to certain sensations or certain emotions inside your body, generally the more powerful, the more effective EFT tapping is for these people. Now, what does that mean? And this could, this is a whole other video. This takes a while to explain. So I'll just give you a brief overview. Is that I'll give you some example actually. So, I was a clinical acupuncturist for a number of years in Australia, and I would be treating many different types of people. Right? And in one day, I'd have many different bodies on the table. And what became obvious after a short amount of time is that everyone had a different level of being able to feel their body. One person, I would put a tiny needle in an area and they would feel it. And they would not only feel it in the area, but they would feel this thing moving through them. They would feel a lot of things going on. And then another person, an hour later, I'd put the tiny needle in the same spot and they wouldn't feel a thing. And I'd even wiggle it around. I'd try and get them to feel something and they wouldn't feel a thing. So everyone is different and everyone has a different level of body awareness. Let's call it body awareness, right? And what I've noticed with some people is that when they're not able to feel they're not able to feel their body very well, it's often because of disassociation. So maybe a trauma, maybe ADHD, maybe addiction, maybe something that a behavior they've learned or picked up from their parents or something is that they're disassociating from their body. Maybe they don't like feeling their body. Maybe when they do feel their body, they don't, it's an unpleasant feeling. So they've learned to disassociate. And so these people are often the people that they're not very good at tuning in. They're not very good at feeling what's going on inside. And so the results of EFT for these people is harder to read, and often there requires a step before it. And this is what I've noticed more recently, is that instead of going straight into EFT, is to spend some time tuning in and practicing scanning through the body. Noticing your breathing, noticing the chest. Does it feel tight? Can you hear your heart beating? Are you holding your solar plexus? Are you clenching your belly? So this is all good practice. If you can get better at what's going on at that level, then EFT tends to work more powerfully. Right? So that's number 2. And again, we can go on forever about this one, but I'll talk about that in another video. The third reason why EFT doesn't work or may not be working is because we're too busy intellectually working it out. Now, this is a very common block. In the West in particular, we're trained to work everything out intellectually or with the mind. Right? In schooling, for example, it's all like math, science and stuff, but how much time do we spend on things like body scanning, becoming aware of different parts of our body? Even our own anatomy and physiology, we're not really clued in. We're too busy, intellectualizing maths and stuff like that. So there's that tendency, is that when it comes to our own healing, our own process, our own life, our own emotions, is that we go into that mode of trying to work it out. Right? And of course it has its place as well, is that sometimes there does need that sort of rationale understanding of what's happening. But in many cases, I've noticed, is that we don't, simply because the mind-body system is super sophisticated. It's the most advanced computer, biocomputer that we are aware of in this world, right? And so the way that it fully functions, the subconscious mind, the unconscious mind, is so sophisticated that just with our intellectual conscious mind, we will never fully understand it at that level. There's something much more powerful going on, something that's much more sophisticated going on. So when it comes to healing and using EFT, is that sometimes we just won't know where it's coming from or where it came from. The important part is just that we can let it go, is that we can allow the energy to move through our system and it just passes through. So the fourth reason why EFT tapping may not be working is because you're not breathing. Now this is actually very common, and especially for beginners, because I know there's a lot of new stuff going on, right? You've got to tap these points, you've got to watch, you've got to listen, and then you've got to repeat what the person's saying back, right? And then move to the next point. It's all very new, and it's like multitasking. So when we do that, when we're concentrating, we stop breathing. Right? And so when we stop breathing, the whole system stops moving, right? And we need to keep the breath going because breath is life, right? Breath is life. So we've got to keep the whole system moving. And so that's why often in my videos and stuff, I actually input in the script is that it's safe now to take a deep breath. So I incorporate it into my wording so that we don't forget to breathe. And I'm training you, or training people to breathe quite regularly through the process. And when the person breathes, things move, things change. And if you're working with someone who's not breathing, slow down and use more of that wording. Get them practiced in breathing and tapping at the same time. Right? And that'll make a big difference. The fifth reason that EFT may not be working is because you're not being thorough enough by writing it down. So when you get, the skill set up and you know how to target, you know how to tune in, right? The next big one is to actually start writing down things to focus on, to keep your focus. Right? So, when my boss said this to me at work, right? So write it down and give it a stress number from 1 to 10, 10 being maximum stress. So write it down, what you're going to focus on, and then start tapping, go through, and keep going back to what you've written. Just keep pulling the mind back to the focus point. Because the natural tendency of the mind is to shoot off into 1,000 different directions, right? And what I've noticed is that may even be a strategy of the ego mind to avoid the healing by creating more distractions, right? It doesn't want to look at this thing, so it's going to make you think about this thing. Right? But if you write it down, you've given a strong intent, and you keep referring back to what you're focusing on. And this just keeps you on point. It's like digging a well. You've got to keep on the same well to clean it out, right? And then once it's knocked out, write the next thing down. Sixth bonus tip about how to get EFT to work better for you is to always include the phrasing or the focus at some point that it's okay to feel this way. It's okay to feel this way. This brings a level of acceptance into whatever you're experiencing, and it's through acceptance of what is that actually healing can actually happen. But a lot of time people go in, they're strongly resisting something, like all this anxiety, I don't like it, I want it to go away, I release and let go, I release and let go. So there's no acceptance in the process. So they're just trying to push it away, or trying to push it down, or push it somewhere, right? When you include, it's okay to feel this way. And this is not just EFT tapping, this is across the board in life. As being a human being, is that you have to keep bringing yourself back into a level of acceptance, because now you can move forward. If you don't accept what is, you're just running on a kind of a fantasy or a kind of delusion of what is. So bring in the wording, it's okay to feel this way. It's okay. It's okay to feel this way. And now it's okay to let it go. Okay, so hopefully it's helpful. Let me know in the comments below if that was helpful, or if you've got any other questions that you want me to address, and I'll make another video for them. Okay, so keep tapping. Have a beautiful day. Thank you.